Arun, sir.
Thank you, Arup, for inviting me to be here. My talk is going to be on ultrasound biometry, probably the oldest instrument that we use to calculate diol power next to the keratometer. It still finds its use today in spite of having excellent optical biometers. When we are faced with an absolutely mature cataract, though pleasantly surprising is the fact that the swept source optical biometers can read through an almost mature cataract or sometimes what looks mature. We still have to fall back on ultrasound biometry. So it's not something that's given up or can be condemned. Okay. So the ultrasound biometer measures the axial length of the eye, the AC depth, and lens thickness. It uses the ultrasound to make measurements. It works on the 10,000 megahertz. The probe injects a thin sound beam, which goes as a thin beam. 10,000 megahertz has got minimal penetration, but very high accuracy. Whatever sound that is reflected back from the reflecting surfaces, whenever there is a difference in the sound transmission from one media to another, some amount of sound is reflected back, and this reflection is read off as spikes. And by measuring the spikes that come back as reflections, we can measure the distances that are there. So we can measure the anterior chamber depth, the lens thickness, and the axial length. So measurement on this, the A scan is from the anterior corneal surface right up to the internal limiting membrane. That's the one that is the highest reflectivity on the retina. Accuracy of the axial length is very high with the ultrasound. If done properly, the repeatability is well within 0.1 millimeters, which is brilliant. The ideal scan should have the initial corneal spikes. If it's done on the immersion method, you can actually see a twin spike of the cornea. If it's a contact method, it would come out as a single spike there. Then you would see the anterior chamber, then the anterior lens spike, the posterior lens spike, then the ILM, or the retinal spike, and then the sclera and the orbital tissues. What is very important that you should look at the quality. The size of the spike should be at least 60% of the total height, and they should be of almost even height. We should not have unevenness, which tells you that the probe is not probably placed very perfectly perpendicular to the ocular tissues. It also tells you the reflectivity is also not too good. So look for an ideal scan every time you do the scan. Ultrasound biometry can be done either by the contact or applanation method or by the immersion method. Though it's normally thought that the immersion method can only give you accuracy, well done contact or applanation method also can give you excellent accuracy in determining the axial length. Contact scan is pretty simple. The cornea is anesthetized and the probe is placed right on the cornea and the measurements are taken. In the immersion scan, you have several different types of shells that are available, which are basically hollow shells that are filled with BSS, placed on the cornea, and the probe is placed in the water bath or the BSS. The probe does not touch the cornea, thereby removing one source of error, which is the indentation of the cornea. That's about all that the immersion device removes, the source of error that comes off from indentation of the cornea. So theoretically and practically, it's more accurate than the applanation method. The immersion scan, you would see a slight double peak on the cornea because the probe doesn't touch the cornea. You can see a double peak. Then you would see the anterior lens, the posterior lens, and the peak otherwise are the same. The limitation of the immersion method would be that it is kind of time consuming and messy. It requires the patient to be supine, and improper cleaning can be a causative factor for cross infections to occur between patients. So the shell and the probe should be soaked in alcohol or hydrogen peroxide or bleach and cleaned properly. Okay. For accurate A scan, we have to do the scan in the lying down position. And never with the patient sitting down, even in the contact method. Patient positioning is very important. When you place the position the patient, the head should be flat. It should not be bent as you see in here. You should have it placed absolutely flat so that you can get the iris plane parallel to the floor. So you should be very sure that the iris plane is parallel to the floor and the probe should be perpendicular to the iris plane. The corneal beam should be parallel to the visual axis so that the echoes are received properly to the probe and it is not tilted. Fixation is very important. You want the patient to fixate on some object so that the eyes are looking straight. A very simple device would be to tell the patient to lift his or her hand and focus on it. Even in a patient with a mature cataract, the proprioceptive impulses coming off from the limbs and the finger can help the patient focus accurately at the finger, even though the visibility is poor. Or you can have an overhead fixation target where your light, you can have a laser pointer shown on the roof or the ceiling, and that can be used as a fixation. There's a fixation light that's available on the probe, which also is very useful for you to fixate. The positioning, as we told you, should be in a way that you can use the hand fixation or the fixation light of the probe. Remember to wet the probe and place it very gently so that you have a proper wet surface without having to press on the cornea. Place just the same lubricating drops, or better still, the lignocaine drops that you're using to anesthetize the cornea. Hold the probe with the wire so that you would not be pressing down or putting any pressure on the cornea. This way, the probe can just be made to touch the cornea very gently, very, very lightly, so that the indentation will not occur. So you can get the readings more accurately this way. You can see here, whenever you get the readings, please look at the spikes. They should be almost of the same height. Look at the axial length. Do look at the AC every time and the lens thickness. Don't just look at only the axial length. Here you're holding the probe. Here the probe can cause compression on the cornea when you hold it with your fingers. Even the light pressure can compress the cornea and the readings can go slightly haywire. That's why it's better to hold the probe with the wire. So you can see here that the axial length is off by 0.1. The AC depth, you can see, is very different between one reading here and the other one there. And the spike also shows a drop. While here, the spike is almost at the same level. So this quality of the spikes is not good, as well as you cause indentation. So this reading should be discarded. We can have different settings. One would be whether you're doing the whole recording on the automated mode or the manual mode. Automated mode has got its own gate settings. If the spikes go up to the gate setting, which is considered good enough by the auto mode, it would accept that and record it. Whenever you have difficulties, you can go on to the manual mode, where you'll have to look very, very diligently on the spikes and push down on the foot pedal to freeze. Whenever you think the spikes that you're getting or the image that you're getting on the screen is suitable or of a good quality. So it's good to go with the auto when all the readings are very easily coming off. Any difficulty, it would be nice to get onto the manual mode and do the recording. Gain settings would be to get different levels of gain when you need it. Increased gain would be required when the height of the echoes is inadequate. This occurs most often in a very, very dense cataract where the sound transmission drops and you need to increase the gain. From a normal standard setting would be somewhere between 50 to 60%. You might have to go to 80, 90, even 100%. Decrease in gain is required when there are artifacts near the retinal echoes, which you would see typically in pseudophakic eyes or silicon oil-filled eyes. Please remember, if you were to consistently send a very high gain, you could be getting shorter than normal readings. and very low gains, you could end up getting longer than normal readings. So make sure that the gain is set in such a way that the spikes that you get on the screen are sufficient and are of good quality. Sound velocities are different for different types of eyes, a phakic eye or a phakic eye or a pseudophakic eye. Remember to set those settings. Please take multiple readings. Check every waveform on the A-scan. Do not take averaging. It's very important you just don't blindly average. Choose the best and consistent waveforms. Remove the inconsistent and poor waveforms. And after that, you can still, if you want to average, yes, you can go average it. You're better off taking the probably 3 to 5 good waveform readings and then averaging it. But you have to be very sure that these axial lengths should be very close to each other before you average them. Don't take outliers and average them. So you find here that this is of a good quality image here, while this is a poor quality here. So you should not take these images which are inconsistent, while you should have proper spikes before you accept that. Ensure that every step is accurate. You can see here that the image, the anterior lens spike is much shorter than the posterior. This signifies that the probe is not perfectly perpendicular to the iris plane, and you're getting grossly wrong readings. So remember that. Look at all of these readings, including the K readings, before you do your final calculation. Because a slight error in the K reading, another error with the axial length, another error with the A constant could have a stacking effect and can give you really bad results in the end. So look at not only the axial lengths, look at the K readings also, look at the axial length, look at the AC depth and the lens thickness each time and the spikes. So pearls for accuracy in ultrasound A-scan would be calibrate the instrument. These instruments come with calibration blocks. Once in a while, do calibrate to make sure that the instrument is properly calibrated. Immersion or contact method with the patient supine. Iris should be parallel to the floor, most important. The probe should be perpendicular to the iris plane. Patient fixation is very, very, very important. Check waveforms for all scans. Don't just take the numbers. Check AC depth to avoid inadvertent corneal compression. Hold probe by wire when doing the contact method. Don't hold the probe directly. Do not average readings. Take the best readings by choosing the best waveforms. In special scenarios, posterior cephaloma is going to be a bugbear. Both very long eyes and very short eyes are problems with ultrasound biometry. You're trying to do the ultrasound biometry and you're hoping to find out the length of the eye along the optical axis when it's not very sure that you're getting the optical axis length every time. You're only getting the, you're getting the length of the eye, but may not be in the visual axis. Especially in staphylomas, you're not sure whether the macula is at the depth of the staphylloma or on the slope of the staphylloma or at the edge of the staphylloma. One that can help you would be to do an A plus B scan, and then this can help you get more accurate results. In very short eyes, you have issues. Macular lesions, shallow retinal detachments, macular edema, or a tumor of the retina can give you false readings. So you see here that there's elevated macular lesion, but here the spike is visible, that you get a double spike. So when you see these kind of erroneous spikes, make sure that you're doing a B scan before you accept these readings. Dense cataracts would cause low spikes, so we'll have to increase the gain. So one of the issues is the dense cataract in A scans with ultrasound. But again, in a very dense cataract or mature cataract, often the optical biometer fails you and you have to come back to the ultrasound biometer. So learn the technique of doing A scan properly, because this is going to serve you in a very difficult situation. Silicon oil filled eyes, check out what kind of silicon oil was put in, 5,000 or 10,000 centistokes or higher than that. Each one of these has got a different velocity of propagation of sound. So that has to be entered in to get accurate values. Pseudophakic eyes, if you ever going to do them, please check if the lens is PMMA, silicon, acrylic, hydrophilic, and check out, and you'll have to enter appropriate correction factors. Drawbacks, most important drawbacks is that the ultrasound measures the anatomic axial length where you hope that it coincides with the optical axial length. Often it doesn't. So that's one issue. Posterior staphyloma, as I told you earlier, in both extremes, long eyes and short eyes, even small variabilities of the axial length can give you high variability in the postoperative refractive outcome. Of course, we all know that the ultrasound measures only up to the internal limiting membrane. Of course, all the formula are giving in a correction factor automatically for this, and you have to enter in a different a constant when you're doing optical biometry. So limitation of ultrasound A scan would be in very long eyes and short eyes, it's going to be difficult. You are better off probably using the optical biometer. In posterior staphyloma, optical biometers are better, but of course you can use A plus B. Most important fact is it needs an experienced operator. You can delegate an optical biometry to almost anybody, but you need an experienced operator when you are doing an ultrasound A scan. Dense cataract gives you a challenge, but often you'll have to fall back only on this. Sort of also are a challenge. So erroneous short measurements, corneal inundation, low sound velocity, too high a gain, malalignment of probe, most important. I cannot overemphasize that the probe should be perfectly perpendicular to the iris plane. Erroneous long measurements, if you're doing immersion and there is bubbles in the fluid bath, then you will get erroneous long measurements. The sound velocity has been wrongly entered, too low gain, posterior staphyloma, or a very thick lens. So errors, particularly if the eye is going to be very long or very short, even small errors of axial length measurement can give you great refractive surprises. Keep that in mind. Can A scan give you precise results? Yes, it can. If it is done properly, you can get perfect results day in and day out if you apply your mind and you apply the right technique. That you can use this even for the multifocal lenses to be well within 0.5 plus or minus spherical refractive outcomes so that your multifocal results are very good. A scan means you need to have good technical skills to get good results. It is definitely doable. It is not a difficult issue. Thank you.